Thunder!
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's been about a month now, and I'm still not fully convinced that Kirby Air Riders is actually real. Like, I'd always hoped for an Air Ride sequel, but I had pretty much accepted the idea that we were never going to get one, so to have it also be the secret new project that Sakurai has been working on all this time, it just feels like a dream come true. To me, Air Ride is the perfect example of a cult classic game. The game was panned by critics when it came out, and I really do think that the game was severely misunderstood because nearly everyone that I know who has played the game talks about it with immense praise. So I'm really thinking that Air Riders is going to give Air Ride the second chance that it deserves. But with that being said, what exactly is going to be included in the sequel? With it being over 20 years since the first game came out, no, that can't be right. 20 years? Oh my god. The Kirby series has grown a lot since the first Air Ride release, so I think that a lot can be done with the game to take the original concept and make it better than ever. So let's go over some ideas that I have for Kirby Air Riders. First up, we gotta talk about the modes. The original Air Ride had 3 modes: the titular Air Ride, Top Ride, and City Trial. Let's start with Air Ride since it is the main mode of the game. Let's get right to the point. Air Ride is a very bare bones racing mode. There's a reason that when most people talk about Kirby Air Ride, they don't talk about this mode as much as they do with City Trial. It's a perfectly serviceable mode, but it's just a little too simplistic for my tastes. However, that simplicity is very intentional. Sakurai made Air Ride with the idea of it being a one-button racer. The Air Ride machines accelerate on their own, so you have 2 control options: the analog stick to steer and control your altitude while gliding, as well as spin to attack enemies, and then pressing the A button to brake and charge up your machine. See, Kirby Air Ride doesn't have a normal drift system. Instead, in Sakurai's own words, it's sort of this squeeze and release system. You press A to slide into a stop, and then you hold it down to charge up your machine's boost gauge. Once you have enough of a charge, you release A and boost off in the direction of your choosing. It can feel a bit clunky at times due to how much it can really halt your momentum in a race, but I respect the unique take. I think that this foundation should definitely stick around for Air Riders. That being said, I still want to see a few major changes. For starters, I want another dedicated button for copy abilities. In Kirby Air Ride, since it's a one-button racer, not only does pressing A charge your machine, but it also allows you to inhale enemies and use your copy ability as well. Now here's the issue. Every time that you want to use a copy ability, you essentially have to slam on the brakes briefly since everything is tied to the A button. I'd love to have a dedicated button in order to freely use copy abilities without having to worry about losing my speed. Another thing that I want to see changed is making it so I don't have to press A when going over boost pads in order to use them. They should just work when going over them. That always felt like such an arbitrary design choice to me. And that pretty much does it for the major changes to mechanics that I want to see in Air Ride. But what about the courses? This is an area that I think needs a massive overhaul. Air Ride only has 9 courses in total, with one of them even needing to be unlocked. Not only that, but the courses felt super generic. You have grasslands, ice, desert, space, just a bunch of typical environments that you would come to expect, but nothing that felt really distinctly like Kirby in my opinion. I absolutely want to see way more inspired courses. Imagine racing through iconic Kirby locations like Rainbow Resort, Mount Dedede, the New World from Kirby and the Forgotten Land, maybe an underground track based on the Great Cave Offensive. These are just some ideas, but there are so many places throughout the Kirby series that would be perfect for basing courses on. I also want to see even more shortcuts and branching paths on these courses. Have certain paths that are better suited for certain machines over others. It could add a lot of general replay value to these courses. In terms of the amount of courses that I want to see, here's what I'm thinking: 20 courses at launch. This would allow for 5 cups of 4 courses each. And yes, that does mean that I think that there should be a Grand Prix mode as well. I honestly think that there should have been a Grand Prix system in the original Air Ride, but then again, there probably weren't enough courses to justify it. So yeah, while the original Air Ride mode felt pretty lackluster, I think that given some more polish, it has the potential to be so much more in the sequel. Moving on to our second main mode, we have Top Ride. Top Ride is interesting to me because out of the 3 main modes, it always confused me as to why it's one of the main modes to begin with. Top Ride is a very quick and chaotic game mode that always felt like it was more suited as being one of the City Trial Stadium events. With that being said, if Sakurai does want to keep Top Ride as one of the main modes, I think there are a few things that you could still add to the mode to make it exciting. The first of which being more courses. With Top Ride being such a simple mode, I have to imagine that it shouldn't be hard to at least double the amount that were present from the original Air Ride. Now, aside from courses, I do have another idea for Top Ride that could be interesting with the introduction of online. What if they introduce some type of relay race mode? You could go online with a group of friends as a team and face off against other teams in Top Ride. There would still be just 4 Kirbys in the race, but after each lap, control of each team's respective Kirby would switch to the next player in the team. I think that this could be a fun way to add to the already hectic nature of the mode, but beyond that, I really don't have much more to say about Top Ride. It never really was one of my favorite modes in the game, but now it's time to talk about what is my favorite mode in the game: City Trial. This is the mode that pretty much everyone talks about when Air Ride is discussed, and for good reason too. For me personally, and I'm sure for many others as well, this mode is what Kirby Air Ride is all about. Whenever I would play the game alone or with friends, City Trial was pretty much the only mode that was ever played. City Trial is what set Kirby Air Ride apart from other racing games on the GameCube. In fact, I would almost classify Kirby Air Ride as more of a party game with racing elements as opposed to being strictly just a racer because of City Trial. The mode itself is pretty straightforward. You and 3 other players are dropped into a fairly sizable open map on a basic starter Air Ride machine. The goal is to go around and collect these stat boosters in the form of patches, as well as possibly finding a better Air Ride machine in order to eventually compete in a stadium event at the end of each run. The mode is pretty much perfect in my opinion, but there are still some things that I would like to see added for Air Riders, the first of which being more maps. I had so much fun playing City Trial as a kid, whether it was in the normal runs themselves or just exploring the map for hours on end in free run. However, the original City Trial only has the one map, so for a sequel I would like for the mode to be much bigger. I'm thinking of the maps as being slightly larger than the original and maybe having 3 or 4 of them this time around, because for as much time as I spent playing City Trial on the single map, adding more of these maps would just increase the replayability of the mode that much more. I'm also expecting for City Trial to have a very robust online mode. Now, of course, having Air Riders as a whole be online is huge in and of itself, but I think that online City Trial specifically has a ton of potential. Many people have often compared City Trial to a modern day battle royale, and yeah, the similarities are definitely there. Being dropped into an open map and having to find better loot in order to stand a better chance against other competitors definitely sounds like a battle royale to me. But I want Air Rider City Trial to take it even further. Let's say instead of just 4 players on the map, we bump it up to 24. Now I know that that sounds like a lot, but just hear me out. What if Sakurai structured it in a way similar to something like Fall Guys, where you would essentially have to reach a certain placement in one run in order to progress to the next one? Instead of just having the single City Trial run ending in a stadium event, there would be multiple stages going through multiple maps and multiple stadium events while slowly whittling down the player pool. This would make the mode so much more competitive, and with a 24 player count, the mode could even be opened up to going in with your friends as a duo, a trio, or even a 4-player squad instead of just playing solo. Now I know, this might seem like a lot to add into City Trial, but seeing how much people love this mode, I could easily see Sakurai putting way more development time into it to essentially make City Trial the main mode as opposed to Air Ride. Something else that I want for the new City Trial is more of a thing for Air Riders in general, but I really just want to see the checklist system return and even be expanded upon more. I love just wandering around the map in City Trial, uncovering hidden secrets throughout the map, and gradually filling out the squares on the checklist. Having all of these little objectives really provided good motivation for players to seek out everything that the game has to offer, so I really hope that it returns, especially if this game is going to be much larger than the original Air Ride. I'm expecting it at the very least to be used for unlocking things in the game. So to take unlocks, to take the checklist system even further, that actually brings me to talking about sort of a new mode that I'd like to see add to Air Riders, but it would still be based within City Trial. A new single player sort of campaign mode for the game. The original Air Ride was a game that I pretty much only ever played with friends, and while there is single player content to be had, I'd really like to see something a bit more fleshed out. This wouldn't have to be some crazy elaborate story mode, but it could just be something like having various missions and challenges scattered throughout the map. It would basically just be a more evolved version of the checklist system. They could even have it where various characters could be placed around the city as NPCs. You could take on challenges from these characters or even race against them in order to have them unlocked as playable characters. And let's actually go more in depth to talking about the playable characters that I'd like to see in Air Riders. In the original Air Ride, Kirby was the only starting playable character. You started with pink, yellow, blue, and red as selectable colors for Kirby, with green, purple, brown, and white being unlockable. There are also 2 two other unlockable characters in the form of King Dedede and Meta Knight. So really, if you aren't counting the colors as actual characters, Kirby Air Ride had 3 playable characters. I really want to see this changed in Air Riders. Now, I'm not expecting a roster on the level of something like Star Allies where every single enemy was playable on top of the already large selection of Dream Friends, but having at least some more playable characters would be great. At the very least, I think that Bandana Waddle Dee needs to become playable. He's a must-have for multiplayer Kirby at this point, but I'm hoping that more characters get added besides just him. I could honestly see most of the Dream Friends getting added in. I know that people like to talk about Sakurai's bias when it comes to the Kirby franchise and how he only seems to give attention to Kirby games that he worked on directly, but I personally think that this is blown way out of proportion. Yes, Sakurai most likely has a soft spot for the era of Kirby that he directed, but I also think that he understands how much the series has grown since he left it and what fans come to expect from it now. Plus, Sakurai isn't working on this alone. Yes, he is the director, but he's working on this alongside HAL Labs, so I think that they will definitely be able to deliver a game that fans are going to look forward to. So there is one glaring issue when it comes to adding more characters: copy abilities. The only other character in the series that could use copy abilities in the same way as Kirby is Gooey. All the other characters have their own unique abilities. I think that there are 2 ways that they could handle this. Number 1 is to do what they already did for Dedede and Meta Knight and just have each character have their own unique attacks. I think that this could be really interesting because it would add way more variety to the roster beyond just basic stats. The other option is to let them use copy abilities. Now you might be thinking, how can they use copy abilities when they can't inhale enemies? Well, I think that they could handle it like how Star Allies did, with characters being able to combine their own weapons with certain elemental copy abilities like Fire Sword or Ice Spear. However, if they went this route, it would limit the copy abilities to just elemental ones. If I had to choose, I think that the first option is much more likely and is the one that I personally want to see. Lastly, I want to talk about Air Ride machines. The original game already has a good amount of machines with a total of 20, 4 of which were only usable in City Trial. But as for the ones that could only be used in Air Ride, there was a great variety. For example, the Warp Star was the most balanced beginner-friendly star, the Swerve Star focused on precision, the Wing Star was great for gliding sections, and you even had more tankier machines suited for combat like the Rex Wheelie and Bulk Star. There is already a ton of variety with the existing Air Ride machines, so I don't honestly see too many more machines getting added. But that doesn't mean that I don't have any ideas. The first thing that immediately came to mind when I saw the trailer for Air Riders was how funny it would be if they put Kirby, or the car mouthful mode from Forgotten Land, in as an Air Ride machine. I could see it behaving pretty similarly to the Wheelie bikes, but being just even more bulkier, maybe even more bulky than the Rex Wheelie. This would also have to be a vehicle exclusive to Kirby, but I don't think that that would be a problem, seeing as Meta Knight's quote-unquote machine is just himself using his wings to fly around. The other idea that I had for a new machine is another weird one: the Robobot armor. Maybe it could be treated like the Dragoon and Hydra legendary machines in City Trial. I know it sounds weird, but I mean, it technically is a machine that Kirby pilots, so why not put it in the game where he pilots other machines? Now, the last thing that I have to say about the Air Ride machines is maybe they could find a way to make the legendary machines playable in the normal Air Ride mode. Even if they have to nerf the stats immensely, it would really be fun to be able to use them in normal races. And that about does it for everything that I want to see in Kirby Air Riders. It was a lot of fun to speculate about this one, seeing as how we barely have any real details to go off of right now. I'm sure that we're probably going to see much more of the game in the coming months, however, seeing as how the game is still set to release this year, which I still find crazy. I'm curious to see if any of the stuff that I talked about here actually comes into fruition, but either way, these are just my ideas. I'm sure that you all have your own ideas that you'd like to see from Kirby Air Riders, so feel free to leave them down in the comments. But for now, I think that's enough out of me. So if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Later!